Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spin Cycle Live. I'm your host, Nathan Hale. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2025, and boy, this is going to be a light show for you all today. I got 4 stories to talk about. I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it sweet. We're going to get right into it. But before that, let me know how you're doing. I hope you're having a great, fantastic, most wonderful day. If I was doing any better right now, I think I just could not stand it. And yeah, let's get right into our first story. We are live on YouTube, Rumble, and X right now. If you missed the show, you want to go back and watch past ones, you want to watch this one later, you can watch it on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure you're following me on all those different platforms at HomoNatian. And with that, let's go and jump into our first story of today, coming from AP News. So, federal officials say a prominent Georgia Republican was running a $140 million Ponzi scheme. Now, you know that I like to talk about news that I find interesting. I find this really interesting. I'm not totally sure why I'm interested in business stuff and everything like this. So when I see Ponzi scheme pop in news, I gotta cover it, right? So I'll keep it short though for you. I know this might be a little bit more boring for other folks, but a prominent Georgia Republican is running a Ponzi scheme that defrauded 300 investors of at least $140 million, federal officials alleged in a complaint filed Thursday. The civil lawsuit by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission said First Liberty Building and Loan, controlled by Brant Frost IV, lied to investors about its business of making high-interest loans to companies. Instead, investigators said it raised more money to repay earlier investors. Frost is alleged to have taken more than $19 million of investor funds for himself, his family, and affiliated companies, even as the business was going broke, spending $160,000 on jewelry and $335,000 with a rare coin dealer. Frost is also said to have spent $320,000 to rent a vacation home over multiple years in Kenbrookport, Maine, the town where the family of late President George H.W. Bush famously spent summers. The SEC said Frost kept writing checks even after the commission began its investigation. First Liberty said last month that it would stop making loans and paying interest and principal to investors in those loans. The company said it was not answering phone calls or emails. The SEC said the business had only $2.76 million in cash as of May 30th, although regulators are also seeking to claw back money from Frost and associated companies, with 300 investors out $140 million. That means the average investor put in nearly $500,000. Frost has been an important player in Georgia politics since 1988 when he coordinated televangelist Pat Robertson's Republican presidential bid in the state. His son, Brant Frost V, is chairman of the Cowlita Country Republican Party, where the company is based, and is a former second vice chair of the state Republican Party. Daughter Katie Frost is Republican chairman of the 3rd Congressional District, which includes Cowlita County and other areas southwest of Atlanta. At last month's state Republican convention, Katie Frost chaired a nomination committee that recommended delegates re-elect state party chairman Josh McCoon. Delegates followed that recommendation, rejecting a number of insurgent candidates. So, this is pretty interesting to me. I think that you need to be really careful you put your money in. But whenever I hear about Ponzi schemes starting, if I gotta talk about it, doesn't matter who's starting it. So I just thought that was something kind of interesting to start off our show today. Let's go move on to another AP story, and one that I think is an interesting message from it. So, how U.S. views of immigration have changed since Trump took office, according to Gallup polling. Now, I'm going to read through this story, and I want you to think and tell me what the problem is with the polling in this story. It's pretty obvious. What's wrong with this story? All right. So just months after President Donald Trump returned to office amid a wave of anti-immigration sentiment, the share of U.S. adults saying immigration is a good thing for the country has jumped substantially, including among Republicans, according to new Gallup polling. About 1 in 10 Americans, 79%, say immigration is a good thing for the country today, an increase from 64% a year ago, and a high point in the nearly 25-year trend. Only about 2 in 10 U.S. adults say immigration is a bad thing right now, down from 32% last year. During Democrat presidential Joe Biden's term in office, negative views of immigration had increased markedly, reaching a high point in the months before Trump, a Republican, took office. The new Gallup data suggests U.S. adults are returning to more pro-immigrant views that could complicate Trump's push for sweeping deportations and other anti-immigration policies. The polls show decreased support for the type of mass deportations Trump has championed since before he was elected. In general, Americans' views of immigration policies have shifted dramatically in the last year, the Gallup polling shows, including among Republicans who have become much more content with immigration levels since Trump took office, but who have also grown more supportive of pathways to citizenship for people in the country illegally. So here's a chart right here. So this blue line shows Democrats. So this is percent who say immigration is a good thing for the country. So 91% of Democrats say that in 2025 that immigration is good for the country. 64% of Republicans say average U.S. adult is 79%, right? So we started in 2001 right around the same point of around 65%. We had a huge dip for Republicans down, and it kind of jumped back up. And then right around the 2007 point when Obama was running for office, Democrat support for immigration just really shot up, where Republican support stayed fairly neutral. So, what's wrong with this article? Well, let me tell you if you haven't figured it out already. This article is asking U.S. adults if they think that immigration is a good thing, and trying to juxtapose it with the fact that Trump is going to deport a whole lot of what the left would love to call immigrants. Now, what the left calls immigrants is what we in the same community call illegal aliens. Those are two completely separate groups of people. They are two completely different situations they're in. Immigrants come into this country legally. They enter through a port of entry, they have a passport or some other documentation, and they are on a pathway to citizenship to get a green card to later become a U.S. citizen, right? An immigrant is what many of our relatives were. They came across the ocean in a boat. They entered in through a port of entry such as Ellis Island. They registered with customs and border enforcement, and they entered into the country as a documented immigrant. We knew who they were, we knew where they lived, we knew some information on them, we knew where they came from, and we turned a lot of people away. And that's what we are doing just right now. We are turning a lot of people away who'd like to come into this country because they're coming from countries that we don't want in America right now. Right? I covered a story earlier early last month about how Trump has cut down on allowing migrants coming in from some African, Middle Eastern countries to come in, which I have no issue with. But what this article is trying to say is that, hey, immigrants are loved by everyone. And thus, what Trump is doing is wrong. It's a bad thing, right? Versus, what would have been more interesting is to show, okay, we asked people what they think of immigrants. Now we ask them what they think of illegal aliens entering the country. I would hardly say that there is bipartisan support for illegal aliens in the United States. If you ask people, do you think that it is a good thing for illegal aliens to enter into the United States undocumented, not through a port of entry and just through an open wall in the border, or to cut their way in line, I would hazard a guess and say that the number of support for that would be extremely low. And this just goes back to what the left wants to portray as happening right now. What the left wants to portray as happening right now is that, Trump is deporting legal aliens. Trump is deporting people who are here legally, who are documented, who are on their way to citizenship, who are good, upstanding people in this country, right? But what Trump is actually doing is deporting people who entered in here illegally. Keyword on the illegal part, right? This article just asks what they think about immigrants in general, right? Not the illegal or legal part of it, right? If you're an illegal immigrant, you enter this country undocumented, you should not be here. You should get sent back home to your country of origin and come back into a port of entry if you want to and become documented, right? I just want you to keep in mind that this is how the media likes to manipulate things, and this is why so many people have sympathy for all the deportation that are happening right now, being like, oh, these poor people, look at them. Look at this. Look at how tyrannical Donald Trump is. A majority of Americans, heck, a majority of Republicans, 64% of them support immigrants. So what Trump is doing is wrong. Trump is a tyrant, right? Trump needs to be removed from office. This is what people look at and use as evidence to say, oh, what Trump is doing is not supported by the American people. 79% of U.S. adults support immigrants in this country. They think that immigrants should be here. So, by proxy, 79% of adults don't like what Donald Trump's immigration policy is. But what they don't understand, because they don't have any critical thinking, is that, 79% of adults in the U.S. support immigrants in the United States. 79% do not support line cutters or criminals or people coming in here illegally or human trafficking, for that matter, right? And that's all I have to say about that. All right, let's talk about Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz, back in the news. So from the Hill. So Dershowitz says he knows Epstein client list names, but I'm bound by confidentiality. Now we covered the Epstein docs on this show multiple times over the year. Most recently, I think we've talked about Wednesday or Monday. And I said that we will never see the Epstein client list. It's being covered up by the U.S. government because everyone's running cover for each other, and it would implicate people on both sides of the aisle who are on the Epstein client list, as far as I'm concerned. Now, do I think that's a fair reason not to release it? Absolutely not. I think it should totally be released. But that was my theory as to why I believe that these files have not been released in the ways that we would have liked them to have been released. So let's hear what Alan Dershowitz says. So lawyer Alan Dershowitz on Thursday said he knows the names in the Jeffrey Epstein files regarding alleged clients in his international sex trafficking ring. Quote, I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, Dershowitz said during an appearance on the Sean Spicer show. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know, he added, noting at one point he was falsely named as a client. Quote, I think that's what... So, excuse me, this is coming from Sigrid McCrawley, who is representing several Epstein victims in their civil cases during an appearance on News Nation. So this is what she had to say. Quote, I think what's really just astonishing about this recent disclosure from the government is that they know they're sitting on a treasure trove of information and they're not turning it over. And I've worked on these cases for over 10 years now. There's a plethora of information that the public has not been able to see relating to Epstein and his co-conspirators. Dershowitz said the list is being withheld in an effort to, quote, protect those individuals with Epstein's crimes. So the perspective I've been seeing from a lot of commentators recently has been, oh, why are we still talking about Epstein? Right? The government released their findings. End of story. That's what happened. Right? Why are we still talking about it? Well, we're still talking about it because there were dozens of victims who were taken advantage of by Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators. And none of those people have been brought to justice. None of them. Right? Where is the justice for the people who were trafficked by the celebrities out of Hollywood, by our politicians? Where is the justice for them at? Right? The government has taken perspective with this case that if you are of such stature, you are untouchable. If you have such authority in the world, if you are such a famous person, you are untouchable. Now, there's a time and a place for being untouchable. I try and be consistent, and I'll tell you why. So, time and a place for this. I don't believe that we should go after presidents, at least while they are currently running for office, right? So I was somewhat against the prosecution of Donald Trump, right? I still am. He's a sitting president. He's in office, right? Just as I would have been against the prosecution of Hillary Clinton back in 2016 when Donald Trump first came into office. You know, she's the political rival of Trump. It's not a good look to go after your number one political rival. However, if you're going after someone like Joe Biden now, I'm perfectly willing to entertain that. Joe Biden's no longer the main political rival of Donald Trump. He is no longer running for office. He's going to be out of office for the rest of his life. The Biden family is likely never going to be in elected office ever again. I see no issue at this point with going and prosecuting them right now. Now, if you came out and said, well, let's go after AOC now, I would say that's a different case, right? AOC's still in office. She's still a major political rival, all that good stuff. So I have no issue with, I guess what I'm saying is releasing this information and saying, let's go after these people. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're a major celebrity or not, right? You know, these people need to be brought to justice. Or at the very least, we need to know who they are, right? It should be public information that we know these are all the people that ever came to Epstein Island, and this is for a fact what we know they did, right? Now, if you want to withhold names of people that, you know, are up in the air, like we don't know if they just visited or if they actually committed a crime while they were there or whatever that is, fine with me. But the government appears to know exactly who was at Epstein Island and what they did. Why don't we know that information? And I would just like people to remember this when we look back on the history of Donald Trump. This is definitely going to be a negative that is used against him in the future when we look back on his record. Now, I like a lot of what Trump does. I really do. I love his policy on immigration. I love the deportation game. I'm all for it. Right? I'm somewhat a fan of a lot of his defense strategy, right? I like his views on the economy, right? I like a lot of things that he's doing. But this is one thing I don't like that he's doing. I'm not a fan of it. Should have released the information. I don't care if he was on the list or not, right? But the major thing is, I believe that Trump is on the list in some capacity. I don't believe that he committed a crime on Epstein Island, but I'm sure that he was on there at one point or another. And it would not have been a good look for the DOJ to have released all that information with the sitting president visiting Epstein Island, even if he did not commit any crimes. And would people have believed had they said he didn't commit any crimes because it's his DOJ who's saying it? I don't know. But it wouldn't have been a good look. So I think this was totally a political move not to release this information. And yeah, that's what I gotta say about that. All right. Moving on to our last story of the week. We have a story from the Daily Wire. So we come from something that I didn't like that Trump was doing to something that he is doing that I really do like. DOJ subpoenas transgender clinics and doctors for transitioning children. The Justice Department has issued nearly 20 subpoenas to doctors and clinics involved in performing transgender medical procedures on children, a DOJ official announced on Wednesday. The Justice Department's Chad Menzelli made the announcement during the Federal Trade Commission's workshop on the dangers of gender-affirming care for minors in Washington, D.C. Menzelli shared that DOJ had issued nearly 20 subpoenas against clinics who are engaged in transgender transition attempts, noting that the DOJ's investigations included healthcare fraud, false statements, and more. Menzel, I don't know how to pronounce his name, urged Americans to come forward if they could provide information about deceptive practices in the transgender medical industry. Come forward and let us know. The FTC notes in a description of the event that Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act gives the FTC broad authority to protect consumers from unfair or deceptive acts or practices. Quote, this authority could be implicated if there is evidence that medical professionals or other omitted warnings about the risks or made false or unsupported claims about the benefits or effectiveness of gender-affirming care for minors. The description notes, quote, the workshop will help the FTC to understand whether consumers are being or have been exposed to false or unsupported claims about gender-affirming care and to gauge the harms consumers may be experiencing. This is great. You know, I am all for the end of gender medicine for kids. There is no reason why we should be cutting the healthy body parts off of children for any reason whatsoever, not even the smallest amount. And I'm all for this, right? No matter what the situation is. And it's true. Parents do not understand what is happening to their kids. Parents do not understand that they should not be cutting off a piece of their kid's body without their consent or with limited consent, or without their ability to know about consent, right? Can a 13-year-old really consent and say that they should be shot up with hormones? Can a 14-year-old really consent and say that they should have a part of their body removed, right? Let alone a kid younger than that, right? This is something that's happening to boys and girls all across the United States, right? We need to have a perspective as Americans that we shouldn't be removing healthy body parts from people. I feel like that's not that extreme of a perspective to take, by the way. So, yeah, I think this is great. I hope that a lot of justice is brought to these people who were transitioned as children, and I hope that these clinics get shut down. Because it should not be happening, right? There's no such thing as a trans kid. That's not a thing, right? Kids are just kids. Let them be kids. Let them live their lives. I don't want to hear about this. Oh, you know, what if they decide that they want to change later in life, so we have to pause their puberty? No. I don't care. I don't care. There's never a reason for it. Unless you have a child who's literally going through puberty when they're like, 9 years old, there's no reason to shoot your kid up with hormones. There's no reason to cut a healthy body part off your child, no matter what that part is. Right. Um, so yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. I just want to share that with you. I think it's great. Major win for the Trump administration. So like I said, there's a lot of things that Trump's doing that I really love. There's a couple of things I don't like I said. So there was, by the way, there was a Twitter post I saw that I wanted to talk about for a second. That it was like, how would you rate the Trump administration's so far? And I was like, I think I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. Like I'd give it like a C plus, maybe a B. I'm really happy with a lot of things that happened, but I think a lot of the things that we were expecting to get haven't really happened yet, or we haven't really seen the results of them yet. So I don't know. We'll keep you updated on things going forward, and yeah, I'm excited to be back with you on Monday, back in the studio that you all know and love. So with that, that is the end of today's episode. I love being here with you every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We are live on those days on YouTube, Rumble, and X at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Do not miss the show. Make sure you share this show with friends. Let people know that Nathan Hale's got the best opinions on the internet. I've got it down, right? I cover the news like nobody else covers the news. I show you stories that nobody else shows you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Tweet at me. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. And let's talk about it. So if you have something that you think should be covered by me or I should know about, send it to me. Let me know. And maybe it'll make its way into the show. But with that, I have been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. Peace out. Bye.